This is Dazzathecameraman. Today is Monday, October 24th, 2016, and this is a follow-up general hangout to our last hangout discussing Nibiru Planet X 2016 coordinates revealed. So we're just going to open this up for some general discussion. We saw that there were a number of comments in the chat, and so we're going to open that up and talk about Planet X, Nibiru in general, and some of the claims that are made. So welcome along Astronomy Live once again, and we also have Sean Hufford with us, and Sean will be helping us to moderate the technical side and also will contribute to the discussion. So welcome along, Sean.
Hello again.
Thank you for joining us. Okay, so Astronomy Live, would you just like to recap on our last hangout and what your findings were, please?
Sure. So video was posted earlier today by Nibiru Planet X Channel 2016, claiming to show Nibiru in Google Sky from images that were taken by the SLU Observatory back in 2011. And so I know it doesn't share properly, but these images, when you pop this window up, it actually shows the dates the pictures were taken. This is a picture from SLU overlaid on top of Google Sky. You can see there's a bright object there, not visible in the background images of Google Sky. Well, it turns out, if you look at the coordinates for where this really is on Google Sky, this turns out to be Saturn. And it's important to look at the real coordinates, which are shown down here in the bottom right corner of Google Sky. The markers showing the coordinates here are off due to a bug with the SLU connection to Google Sky. It's off by about 12 hours. In fact, exactly 12 hours right ascension. So it's important to look at where it actually is in relation to the stars. It's in the constellation Virgo, which is at 13 hours right ascension. And sure enough, it matches the position of Saturn in February 2011 when the picture was taken. So we covered that in the last hangout, and I covered it in a video uploaded to my channel. So just a few seconds of research with any given planetarium program would have quickly revealed to Nibiru channel what this really was. But instead, he hopped on YouTube and immediately posted a video that was completely and factually wrong, claiming that this is an unknown object, a mysterious object with moons, when in fact it's a known object with moons, Saturn.
Right, thank you for that recap. So once again, another so-called Nibiru Planet X object has been debunked and positively identified, and in this case, as Astronomy Live has just confirmed, it is the planet Saturn. So this follows on from a long series of failed claims from Nibiru Planet X 2016, supposedly showing Nibiru. And just to recap, of course, the video that started this all was his video supposedly showing planet Enoch, as he called it, crossing over in front of the sun, which was subsequently identified, positively identified as being the moon, as seen from stereo behind in 2007. And then he uploaded a video from Scotland, which was a webcam, supposedly showing Nibiru racing across the sky, which was positively identified as being a lens flare, and that video was subsequently removed. And then he uploaded a video supposedly showing Nibiru as seen from the skies of Phoenix, Arizona. And even the location was wrong because it was Tucson, Arizona, and it was a sunlit cloud at sunset. And that video has since been removed. And now with his latest, greatest revelations of the coordinates for Nibiru in 2011, we find it is Saturn. So another one bites the dust. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, you cut off there at the end. Were you referring to me or to Sean?
Either of you guys, just jump in there and let's hear what you've got to say.
Well, I'm just kind of watching the chat. Pete is back into chat, still wanting to ask his questions. I don't know if he wants to actually get into the hangout or not. I thought you were in contact with him.
Yes, I had sent the link to Pete in case he wanted to join. So I'm sorry, I'm just behind the scenes here. I'm catching up on what's going on. Only chatting to the Skype guys, not chatting to the chat. Okay, so I gather from that, Pete, that you just want to remain in the chat and comment by text. You've got the link. If you do want to join the hangout, you can join the hangout and come on live. But other than that, you can just comment in the text if you prefer to do so.
Going on to the assumption that he doesn't want to join, his first question was, first, have you seen my last video? If so, can you explain why the North Pole just had an earthquake and the sun's monitors are doing weird stuff?
Okay, I'll defer some of the more technical side to Astronomy Live because he is certainly a much more able astronomer than I am. I'll just paint a little picture here just to fill people in. Pete WDHCO is a Nibiru Planet X believer. Okay, so it's quite interesting to have the viewpoint of somebody who believes in Nibiru Planet X and to answer the questions or points that they have to see if we can address those issues. So just to recap that question again, and maybe Astronomy Live can address that.
Well, I'd have to see the specific video to see what he's referring to, but it sounds like, you know, there's a lot of claims about Nibiru which involve, you know, look at this, look at that type situations, look at, you know, a mass death of birds or fish, or here's an earthquake in an odd area on Earth that I'm not used to seeing earthquakes, or here's a, you know, model of the solar wind that screwed up for a day. You know, I don't know. I know there was some issue with a computer model that looked at Earth's geomagnetic field, and it looked like Earth's magnetic field collapsed at one point. He attributed, you know, a lot of things like that can be attributed to simple glitches in the actual modeling. Sometimes the sensors providing the data for the model lose their connection, and then the model itself ends up breaking. I can't speak to the specifics of the video since I haven't seen it, but, you know, I think in any of these cases we have to be careful about, first of all, you know, trying to cherry pick points of data that don't necessarily have anything to do with an unknown body approaching Earth. You know, it doesn't take an unknown body approaching Earth to have an earthquake, even an earthquake in an odd area on Earth. So those two don't necessarily go together. If there were an actual, you know, Planet X or Nibiru object approaching Earth, swinging into the inner solar system, it would have gravitational effects on all the planets, not just Earth. And you would see that not just with earthquakes. In fact, you would see other effects long before you saw earthquakes. You would see perturbations in the orbits of the outer planets. You would see Neptune, Uranus. They wouldn't match up with the ephemeris of where they're predicted to be due to those perturbations. We haven't seen that. So for you to make a credible claim about an object near Earth causing earthquakes, you first have to show that there is a plausible reason to believe that could be a working mechanism to explain the earthquake in the first place, instead of, you know, issues with the Earth's mantle, plate tectonics. You know, before jumping to the conclusion that it's Nibiru affecting Earth, you have to show that Nibiru is a plausible mechanism to cause whatever it is that you're looking at, whether it's, you know, modeling of the solar wind or earthquakes or any of these sort of secondary factors.
Right, and to go back to some of the points like about the poles that was referenced in the first question, this is a claim that we often hear, is that people say that the Earth's poles have shifted, and unfortunately people often confuse between magnetic pole shift, which is completely normal and has always happened, and shifting of the axis of rotation, the Earth's axis rotation, which has not shifted. There are charts out there that show what appears to be a shifting in the Earth's axis of rotation, but the amount of shifting that we're talking about is actually measured in milli-arc seconds. Now, just to explain that, 1 degree is broken down into 60 arc minutes. So 1/60th of 1 degree is 1 arc minute. If you take that 1 arc minute and break that down by a further 60, that gives you arc seconds. Now, when we talk about milli-arc seconds, we're talking about 1,000th of 1/3600th of 1 degree. So although it might look like a spectacular shift on a chart, when you realize the actual terribly small unit that we're actually measuring in, there is no change in the Earth's axis of rotation. It is still at approximately 23.4 degrees. Polaris is still our pole star, which is about 2/3 of 1 degree from the north celestial equator. And everything is normal. And if it wasn't, if the Earth had been thrown off its axis by a brown dwarf or a rogue planet nearby, then all of the objects in the sky, all of the planets, the stars, everything that we look at from the point of view of astronomers would be in the wrong position as far as their right ascension and declination coordinates go. Would you agree with that, Astronomy Live?
Yeah, absolutely. And just to reiterate the point, since he was complaining that we're not answering his question about an earthquake on the North Pole, but like I said, it doesn't require Nibiru for there to be earthquakes, even in odd locations on Earth. And if that were the cause, if it were some massive object that was somehow torquing Earth's crust and causing earthquakes in strange locations, there would have to be massive effects on the orbits of the planets before you got to that point. So where are they? where are the perturbed orbits that are completely out of whack with VSOP 83 or VSOP 87 and all these other algorithms for calculating the positions of the planets? I'm not seeing it, and neither are other amateur astronomers. So it doesn't require Nibiru to explain that. I don't have to know precisely what it is to know Nibiru is not the cause. We can rule that out as a cause, right? And then we can look at other factors and see what might be causing it. But to claim that it's some massive planet that's in the solar system that's causing Earth to experience earthquakes and all this other stuff, you have to show that that's a plausible mechanism. You have to show that the orbits are being perturbed by some unseen force that is, potentially causing these kinds of events.
Well, he just made a topic that's on, or made a comment that's on topic with what you're saying. He says the orbits will look the same because the whole system is out. The problem with that is the background stars also being tilted by Nibiru. All of them.
I haven't seen the background stars also being tilted. But okay, so he claims the whole system is out, but that's not how it would actually work. Let me show you guys how it would actually work. So can you guys see the screen I'm sharing?
Yes, I can.
Okay. So this is a video I rendered calculating the effect of gravity of a hypothetical Nibiru on the solar system. So this is a minimum mass brown dwarf that sweeps through the inner solar system every 3,600 years. And let me show you what it does to the orbits of the planets in very swift fashion. It doesn't affect the whole system uniformly so that everything looks like it's normal. Oh no. Be out of whack very quickly. Look how quickly the orbits of the planets are changing here. At this point, Earth is in a highly eccentric orbit, and the Moon is no longer orbiting Earth. The Moon has been ripped away from Earth, and it just gets crazier and crazier. And pretty soon you end up in this configuration where all the planets of the solar system are in these highly eccentric orbits. This is Nibiru's orbit down here. And the orbits of the planets end up in these constrained elliptical orbits that are now aligned, co-aligned, roughly, but opposite Nibiru. And this is what's known as the Kozai mechanism. And it's analogous to what we think is actually happening in the far outer solar system, but we're talking distances beyond Neptune, significantly beyond Neptune. So objects that are called extreme trans-Neptunian objects appear to be in orbits like what you see here, in these highly elliptical orbits that are somewhat co-aligned, potentially opposite from an unseen perturber. But this perturber would be in the outer solar system, out beyond Neptune, which is why it only seems to be affecting those orbits far beyond Neptune. So an object that is more massive than Earth could be out there beyond the orbit of Neptune, constraining the orbits of these extreme trans-Neptunian objects, but it would not be sweeping into the inner solar system. It would be remaining out there, which is why that region seems to be so disturbed. If it were sweeping through the inner planets, this is what you would see for the inner solar system, and obviously our solar system looks nothing like this. That's why I say, if it's some sort of Nibiru sweeping through the inner solar system, where are the effects? Because they ought to be pretty darn noticeable.
Right, and I'd just like to pick up on a comment that Double-Crossed Swine has made. He says, Pete, they have added quite a lot of new earthquake sensors over the last few years. So there is your answer as to why there are more earthquakes being recorded. There isn't an actual uptick in quakes, and that is an excellent point, and this is a point that I have often made to people. People talk about the apparent increase in the number of earthquakes, but what we have is increased monitoring that we never had before historically, and increased reporting. I remember when the earthquake hit Japan that caused that massive tsunami. I was watching that live on television, and it did occur to me at the time how amazing the technology is that we have now, that we can be aware of an event like that on the other side of the planet and actually watch it live as it was unfolding. And as Double-Crossed Swine says, we have increased monitoring. We've got more sensors, more are being added all of the time. And certainly in areas where earthquakes may have occurred that were not detected before, they are being detected. And of course, with our news links and social media and all that sort of thing, it has been reported more widely. We've also got a lot more awareness of things such as solar events, solar flares, and so on, thanks to NASA and other agencies sharing information with the public so that people can even go on these sites, download the images, and make all sorts of fear porn videos claiming that things are going wrong when things are actually ticking along quite normally.
So someone posted the comment that they'd love to see us do this with Scott and Olson, and I agree. I wish they would come on. You know, initially, Nibiru channel did come on and we had civil discussions, but you saw what it turned into. It's unfortunate, but he's now gone to doxing and vicious personal attacks, and not addressing the evidence that we're actually posting. It turned quite nasty after being quite civil, and you know, it seems like he's capable of having civil discussions when he comes into the Hangouts, but then when he goes away, it gets worse and worse. When he's on his own channel or, you know, posting text comments, whatever. So it's unfortunate that it's turned to that. We're happy to have civil discussions with anyone, but they have to be willing to come on here and have civil discussions, and, you know, not turn into a flame war when they leave. But that doesn't seem to be the case. We've yet to find that sort of honesty, I guess you'd say.
Absolutely, and as I said in the first Hangout, you know, I was pleasantly surprised when Scott from Nibiru Planet X 2016 actually contacted me and seemed to be sincere. We had a long conversation on Skype before the Hangout, and as a result of that, I welcomed him into the Hangout. I believed that he was sincere, and I thought that we had a very productive, very constructive live Hangout where everything was discussed out in the open for everybody to hear. And then, of course, I was very disappointed when he exploded on my Facebook private message feed, accusing you and I of all sorts of things and telling lies and all the rest of it, which we've already heard about. So absolutely, you know, Scott and Steve Olson and all of the others, we're certainly quite prepared to front up in a live and respectful discussion, discuss the claims respectfully, politely, like gentlemen, and see where it takes us. Let's look at the evidence. If we're talking about the truth here, we should have nothing at all to fear about investigating these claims.
Yes, and just to answer Kelly White, who said you can file a privacy complaint if you feel the video went too far. I did, actually, yesterday, as a matter of fact. And let's see, we're down to about 20 hours remaining on that. YouTube gives you a 48-hour period after a privacy complaint has been filed to voluntarily remove the video with the privacy infraction. And he now has 20 hours remaining in that grace period to remove his video before YouTube will review it and take it down, because he did clearly violate YouTube's rules on privacy.
Now, to expand on that, he has been on that video making comments and replies to people telling them to mirror the video, which is inciting his own followers to also commit a privacy violation. But by him asking them to do that, it's also called harassment. Just pointing that out.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and if I see those videos, please, you know, send me comments, send me messages. If you see that video getting mirrored elsewhere, I will report it as well. Elsewhere, I know YouTube is kind of particular about privacy complaints. The privacy complaint has to come from the person whose privacy was violated. In that case, in this case, me. So send me the comment, or send me the links to the videos, and I will report them one by one if necessary.
Right, and I should make the point too that Scott actually challenged me to post his personal private information in a video, and that's not the way I roll, that's not the way that I play things. We're looking at the claims that are made, and certainly I'm quite happy to post videos exposing lies that have been told, such as the recording from the Hangout where he admitted that he tried to call my bluff, to use his words. In other words, he admitted lying about contacting those two professors. But as far as docs dropping or posting personal information, that is certainly not the way that I roll. And by the way, Scott, if you're listening, my Facebook video, when you post things on Facebook as public posts, it is public information. So I certainly didn't post any personal information there. If you have any concerns about anything that you don't want as public information, it's quite simple. You change your privacy settings to friends only, and then it is not public information. If you read the terms and conditions of your Facebook agreement, you will find that the information is indeed public when you post it as public.
So to answer...
Okay.
Sorry, go ahead.
I think you're going to address the question that Pete's been asking that he's busting to hear the answer to. So go ahead, Astronomy Live.
His question was, now mind you, this is his second question, but he states it as, my first main question for you guys, do you believe in God, and were you married in a church?
I do believe in God, and I am currently single. Well, I actually have a girlfriend, but I'm not married yet.
Well,
Yes.
for my answer to those, I have had no evidence to say there is one, so belief is not an issue. And yes, I was married in church because that's where my ex-wife wanted to be married, and the woman always
Right.
wins.
If you know what's good for you. Right. I also believe in a God. I've had to review my beliefs considerably over the years. I used to very much be a very traditional sort of creationist believer, but the more I investigated the evidence of a young Earth and all the rest of it, I realized that I had to adjust my beliefs, because the overwhelming evidence certainly does not support a 6,000-year-old Earth and a young solar system. And it's interesting that there are a number of scientists, astronomers, astrophysicists, and so on, who are believers in a God and a designer. And there are different viewpoints on how that fits together. And one of those viewpoints is what's called theistic evolution. So in other words, you've got a designer, an intelligent creator who is guiding that process of evolution. From an astronomy point of view, and I'm sure Astronomy Live would agree with me on this, is that when we look at the solar system, we see two things. We see chaos and we see order. And, you know, when I was looking at that orbit diagram that Astronomy Live produced showing the effect that Nibiru would have on our solar system, it certainly occurred to me about how everything is so perfect with our orbits, and the way that the planets are perfectly timed. You can go ahead years at a time and predict transits and eclipses and things like that. But at the same time, there's a whole lot of chaos out there with asteroids flying all around the place. When we looked at the images of the comet that the Philae lander landed on a while back, that is just such a big random piece of rock. It does not look like it's been specifically designed in any way. It's just a big chunk of rock that's floating through the solar system. So what are your thoughts on that, Astronomy Live?
No, it's you know, there's a lot of interesting stuff out there in astronomy, and there's a lot of exciting developments right now. And it seems unfortunate to me that so much of it has become, the society has really become desensitized to it, and YouTube society in particular is sort of desensitized to actual scientific and astronomical discoveries and developments, including the Rosetta mission, because we're flooded with these ridiculous claims about Nibiru and Planet X and all the other stuff. You know, there is a real Planet 9 theory out there, and that gets co-opted all the time for these sorts of claims. It's an unfortunate development to me. You know, the Rosetta mission just ended, and we have now a ton of awesome images and data from both the orbiter and the lander that provide a much better close-up view of a comet than we've ever had before in human history. And as far as I can tell, YouTube in general just doesn't much care. I mean, I'm sure it depends on what community you're in, I'm sure. But, you know, it's unfortunate. But there are these awesome developments, and there is a great collaboration going on between amateurs and professionals on a lot of these missions, including Rosetta. There's a Facebook group dedicated to that, and so I was a part of that and getting to see, you know, these pictures as they were coming in from professionals, and pictures as they were coming in from amateurs who were monitoring the mission from here on Earth, monitoring the comet's activity and correlating it to what was being seen up close with the Rosetta Probe. So there are these fantastic opportunities for citizen science, for amateurs to get involved in the science of astronomy and actually make real contributions to missions. Right now, there is a mission headed towards asteroid Bennu that was just launched earlier this year, the OSIRIS-REx probe. Well, part of getting to that asteroid is knowing its orbit. And part of its orbit determination has been made by amateur astronomers. Amateurs have contributed data that is now being used to know where that asteroid will be in the future and guide a probe to it so that they meet at the same point. To me, that's an incredible and awesome development to see, you know, citizen science, amateur astronomy contributing to these cutting-edge space missions. And I just wish, instead of having to deal with claims that OSIRIS-REx is secretly blowing up some asteroid that's about to hit Earth, which didn't happen, I wish we could focus more on the actual missions and the actual science that's going on. You know, I wish my channel could be more focused on that. But every time I try to get into a mode of, okay, we're going to do some live shows and you know, talk about the latest mission that just launched and all this, by the time I get around to actually doing that, oh, here comes another claim that the mission is secretly being launched to destroy Nibiru or whatever, and I end up addressing that instead. And I know some people comment, why do you do that? Why even address it? Because people are scared by it.
there are people out there who see those videos and they think that it's real, you know, that the asteroid's about to hit us or Nibiru is about to kill us, and you know, they get concerned about it. And so I think it's important, as an amateur astronomer, I can, you know, do what I can to try to debunk that, because you know, NASA's not going to waste, for the most part, NASA's not going to waste their time debunking that. NASA will do an awesome job, you know, sending a probe to some asteroid and landing on, or you know, bumping into it and bringing a sample back to Earth. That's going to be awesome. But you know, what can I do? What can I do? Well, I find that I'm pretty good at, you know, analyzing these claims and debunking them, and hopefully putting people's minds at ease. And I know that occupies a lot of my time, perhaps more than it should on my channel, but I think it's an important public service. So the way I see it, it's necessary. Anyway, that was a long rant, but I hope that answered the question.
Absolutely. I totally agree. And even just this morning, I received a very long private message via Facebook from a young man who told me his story. And I won't go into the details until he gives me permission to make it all public. But suffice to say, he has been very terrified by the claims that have been made about Planet X, Nibiru, and all the things that are supposed to happen. All the things that have been supposed to happen since 2003, I might add, when Nancy Leader said that Nibiru would be arriving that year, and she advised all her followers to euthanize their pets, as she did. She killed 2 of her dogs, supposedly to spare them all the catastrophe that was supposed to happen in 2003. So I hope that not too many of her followers actually did that. But yes, as you say, it is a public service that we're doing in debunking these claims, because there is a lot of fear out there, and this suggestion that people, if they have trouble with anxiety, just should not subscribe to the channels, not watch the videos, that's just nonsense, because by their very nature, that is exactly what they're going to do. They're going to watch the videos, they're going to seek out the information because they're concerned about it, and it feeds their fear, and it can result in tragedy.
If I can interject from something from the chat, a
Sure.
username by Shizoon said that they were the one that originally sent Scott the video from Nibiru Planet X 2016. On what I originally thought was Nibiru, I used Google Earth and Sleuth. I'm guessing he meant Slew today, and me and him had 12 emails back and forth today. I used Earth and sent Scott the original video, and honestly, it seemed like a rushed mistake.
Right.
Now, I don't know the validity of all that, but that's the claim.
Okay, so what we're all about is transparency here. And so what we'd need is for you to contact us. You can find my email address in the About tab of my channel, or send me a private message through YouTube, and we can follow up on your claims. You can forward us the emails that went backwards and forwards, and we're prepared to do another live hangout on that, or videos, to investigate the evidence, because that's what we're about. We are about being transparent up front and investigating all of the facts to see where they take us. So thank you for that, and that's quite a frank admission, and we'd be keen to follow up on that further. And I see that she says, I'm willing to say it's my fault. The video is recording is from me. Sure thing, stand by. So yes, please do follow up on that. Now, I should say at this stage, of course, that we cannot confirm this just from the chat, but we are certainly prepared to follow up on that and see where it takes us. Okay, Mari, you've been sitting in the background for a while. Did you want to join in and make a comment?
Yeah, I feel like I'm just creeping in, you know, right now. I'm really sick. I came home and I just woke up this morning feeling like crap, can't breathe. So what I have to say to, you know, the guy who submitted the information to Scott, he's not the one that should feel bad. Scott, the Nibiru channel, should be able to, as a channel owner, take responsibility and vet his information and verify it. But what instead happens is the ego kicks in. He needs to be the first. He feels like he's the first to get this awesome information online, and without any thought or, you know, consideration of how that information will affect others emotionally, he just goes and vomits it up on his YouTube channel. And, you know, here we are discussing it, you know, and I'm sure the video will go missing in, you know, another like 3 hours. Same thing with Steve Olson. You know, someone sends him something he doesn't understand, and all of a sudden it gets put up, and several hours later, you know, we're discussing how he called it a binary solar system he was calling it on his channel to over, I think it's about 50,000 people now. And all it was microscopic images of some, tests that they were doing on the ISS. These channels have to take responsibility and try a little harder when it comes to researching their data before they go out and just throw it up there, because it just makes a fool of themselves. I have a video of the plasma, the planetary plasma, just something as simple as, clicking forward and backward a couple hours on a webcam, capture, or even like comparing year by year on a webcam capture to see if it's a, holiday celebration fireworks. But no, they're like plasmatary plasma beams, it's all sensational. And, I keep my channel going for people to question their intent. What's their intent? They know exactly what they're doing, I just can't imagine someone could be that stupid and put it up. Their main goal is to get sensational content out there as quickly as possible for their view counts, for their monetization dollars, and to have a reason to beg for donations. So, yeah, fun times. That's my thoughts.
Thank you for that, Mari. And just I should mention too, I've just checked my emails and I see that Shazun has actually forwarded the emails through to me. So thank you for that, Shazun. I will follow up on that, and I will pass those on to Astronomy Live and onto Mari, and we'll check these emails and what was said. So that's an exclusive for you on Dazzathecameraman and Astronomy Live. Breaking news for you about the original video that Scott released. So we'll be following up on that with a video. So thank you, Shazun. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly.
Bob Band, Daz, I want you to say hi to him in chat. I feel obligated to say that because Bob's my buddy.
Yes, I'm sorry, Bob. I did see your message here. It's frantic in the chat, as you can see with new comments, and I don't multitask terribly well. So thank you, Bob. Shout out to Bob and everybody else. It's good to see everyone in the chat. And let me see if I check the live feed. I see we've got 50 people watching at the moment. So that's pretty good, and good discussion. And I think that possibly Pete might want some more questions answered. So maybe if you can repost something there, Pete, and we'll try and answer some questions as best we can. But yeah, so just a quick recap for anybody that's just joined the Hangout. Of course, the latest video by Nibiru, Planet X 2016, where he supposedly has revealed the coordinates for Nibiru in 2016, has been confirmed that it was Saturn. And check out Astronomy Live's latest video, where he gives a detailed video providing all the details on the proof of that. And no doubt we'll have some follow-up videos about that as well. So Astronomy Live, in the video by Nibiru Planet X 2016, the opening thumbnail was the Nibiru channel exclusive. Nibiru coordinates from 2011, video/photo, current coordinates being plotted as we speak. Well, can you save Nibiru Planet X 2016 all the trouble, and maybe you can just pull up the current right ascension and declinations for Nibiru, aka Saturn, right now, and maybe you can save them a lot of bother.
Yes, absolutely. Let me pull it up. Let's see. What's the date today? Today is the 23rd of October. And so the current coordinates as of about midnight, October 23rd, just to be approximate. Let's give it a couple hours on that. Let's say it's October 24th at midnight, just a couple hours from now. The coordinates in J2000, these are topocentric coordinates, not geocentric. But just to give some approximate coordinates, 16 hours right ascension, 16 hours, 48 minutes, 35.78 seconds right ascension, and declination -21 degrees, 2 minutes at 10.3 seconds. So those are your approximate coordinates for Saturn as of 2 hours from now.
Right, and just to recap too, that the earlier images in Google Sky and other similar astronomy programs are not live images. They cannot be used as a telescope. And just, can you give us an outline of how long ago those images were taken that are used in Google Sky?
Sure. So the images that were shown in the video in question, let me just pull up Google Earth here. This is actually more recent than just about any other image you're going to see in Google Sky. And even this image, this big green shiny thing, This is 5 years old. If I click on it here, you can't see the box, I guess, but this was taken February 28th. You can see that in my video on my channel. You'll be able to see the date, February 28th, 2011. And if I zoom out even more, or if I just turn off this image and look at the background. So the background image comes from the digitized sky survey, which you can see there is copyright 2007. Now that's the copyright date. Probably, I'm guessing, for the mosaic that was created out of the digitized sky survey, or perhaps the digitized sky survey itself. But the images that were taken here, like this whole picture, actually comes from a photographic film plate that was recorded at some point. This does look like, yeah, this is DSS right here. If I scroll up a little bit, just north of that point, these are images from SDSS, which is the Sloan digitized sky, or Sloan digital sky survey, which is a newer, much newer sky survey than the Palomar images. But down here, I can tell by the quality of these images. And if I scroll down here, you'll notice up here you'll see the copyright for both SDSS and DSS, since both sets of data are being used. But once I cross this line right here, suddenly it's now just DSS. So this image where this picture was taken, the background is from the digitized sky survey, which come from the older Palomar sky survey plates and its southern hemisphere counterpart. So those photographic plates were taken for the more recent version of the Palomar Sky Survey, Palomar Sky Survey 2. That was in the 1980s to about the 1990s, in that ballpark. So you're looking here at an image that is probably somewhere on the order of at least 20 years old or more for the background.
Right. Okay. So just to recap, my point is that the Google Sky images cannot be used ever as a live telescope, as some people try to do. Now, I just had a thought with Shazoon. I hope that you're still in the chat there. I'm just wondering, just tell us, would you like to join us live in the chat so that you can tell, or sorry, live in the Hangout so that you can tell your story? If you can get back to us in the chat, I know there's a bit of a delay, and maybe I can send you the Hangout link so that you can join us. Yes, you're in the chat, Shazoon. Yeah. Would you like to join the Hangout?
He just said yes.
Yep. Okay. Well, I'm sending you the link to join the Hangout via the email that you sent me. I'll send that on reply to you, and we'll get you in the Hangout. Go ahead, guys.
I don't have a whole lot to say. I'm working on my project of, it's like a compilation of all the nasty Scott comments. That's what I'm working on right now. While I listen to everything.
Right. Well, I guess that might take a while because I know that there's been a few of them.
Yeah. Oh, it's been pretty bad. Did Astronomy Live show you the meme that he's telling people to share in Photoshop?
Sorry, the what was it?
He's like, he has a picture of Astronomy Live and he's telling people to Photoshop it.
Is that the one where Astronomy Live is with his telescope?
Yeah.
Yeah, he sent that to me too via Skype. I've had some interesting comments come back from Scott from Nibiru Planet X 2016 via Skype in the last few days. He certainly has a way with words, doesn't he?
And by interesting, you mean NC-17 interesting?
Well, you know, the prior Hangout that I was saying, how he was like, come back to my side. You shouldn't have left my side. I was like, I was never on your side. Just like, come on. But I'm putting a compilation together, so everyone can now see him for what he's worth.
I look forward to seeing that, Mari, from WTF Sky. And we have Shazoon joining the Hangout. Welcome, Shazoon. Am I pronouncing your name correctly, please?
My real name is Clayton, but people just call me Shazoon for the hell of it.
Right. So welcome along. And so you've got something to share with us about the video. So go ahead.
I have been following along both you and Scott, or I want to say the last... Hold on a second, please. Can you hear me still?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
All right. So I've been following Scott and you both along for, I want to say, the last 5 days, and I've been doing a lot of research into the Nibiru, or whatever you want to pronounce it as. And for the most of today, me and him have been sending emails back and forth, and what I originally thought was the planet, which I found out now is Saturn, just a very horrific film of it. But originally I was also in the panic, I guess you want to say, of the whole end of the world thing, but I was trying to do it out of goodwill, if you want.
Right. So you sent the video to Scott originally, and he's
Correct.
re-uploaded it. And so you're acknowledging that it is actually... Go ahead.
Yes, I am acknowledging it. It was me that sent it. I have forwarded the emails to you as well.
Right. And can you just confirm to us what you now believe the object is in the video?
I do believe it was Saturn, as I have seen. I went in and have confirmed that it most likely was Saturn.
Right. Okay. And I really appreciate you coming on and fronting up. It takes a lot of guts to do that. You know, anybody can make a mistake, but it's great that you've actually fronted up and acknowledged that, and I really appreciate that. So thank you.
No worries.
So, do you have any other thoughts about Nibiru Planet X that you might like to discuss while you're here? Maybe we can answer some questions for you.
I was originally in the panic state about the whole thing when I saw Scott's videos and looked at myself, but you know, I'm just actually more here and happy to actually see people talking about it, to be fair, and discussing it anyways in a civil matter.
Absolutely, and that's what we'd like to see as well, and that's why we invited Scott in the first place into a live hangout, so that we could discuss things openly, honestly, respectfully, with transparency for everyone to see. So,
of course,
as I've said, I was quite disappointed with the events that transpired after that. But anyway, we move forward and we do the best we can.
All right, that's definitely a good mindset to have.
Yeah. Okay.
I apologize if I'm bad with words. I was never good with talking to others.
No, you're doing fine, thank you, and I appreciate you coming on. And just while you're here, since we're talking about Nibiru Planet X, is it really out there? Well, I was going to talk before about Planet 9. Now, of course, we had these two researchers, and I can't remember their names properly. I think it was Brown and Battigan, if I remember correctly. Maybe you can correct me, Astronomy Live, who released their research about a hypothetical object that has been dubbed Planet 9. And this was based on their orbital calculations, or their calculations based on what they see as perturbations of objects further out in the solar system, way beyond Neptune. And Astronomy Live may have to correct me if I'm getting any of this wrong. But they released their research, and they believe that there may be a large object out there dubbed Planet 9. And the point is that even these two researchers have never seen their hypothetical Planet 9. Nobody has seen it. Nobody has imaged it. If it exists, they don't even know exactly where it is, but they have said that based on their calculations, its closest approach to the Earth and Sun would be 200 AU. Now, 1 AU is the average distance between the Sun and the Earth. So 1 AU, I should say, is also 150 million kilometers, or 93 million miles. So at 200 AU as a minimum distance, or closest distance, we're talking about 30 billion kilometers. And to add to that, they've said of their Planet 9 that they calculate that its orbital period would be somewhere between 10,000 and 20,000 years. So they can't even give an exact orbital period because it's still very much hypothetical. And the only way that they could refine their calculations, their trajectory data, or orbital data, would be for this object to be located and imaged. And then from those observations, the trajectory data can be accurately calculated, providing its orbital period. Astronomy Live, maybe you'd like to comment further on that side of the technical side of things?
I think you got everything right there. To put this in some perspective for the viewers, because I mean the numbers just get stupid large when you start talking about how far away 200 AU is in kilometers or miles or any other unit of measurement you're used to thinking about. So to put this on a perspective that can start to help you visualize it, as Dazza mentioned, it would be at its closest around 200 AU away. The distance between the Sun and Neptune, the furthest major planet in the solar system that we currently know about, is about 30 astronomical units. So you're looking at many times an object that is many times further than Neptune when it's at its closest to the Sun, and it spends most of its time much farther from the Sun at even greater distances. So it would be very, very far away. It would not be an immediate threat to Earth. Even if it were at its closest point to the Sun, it would not pose a danger to us here on Earth.
Right, so we can rule out Planet 9 as being Nibiru Planet X. So let's just say that there was a brown dwarf or large planet somewhere within our solar system, within the orbit of Neptune. Now, would you agree that that object would be clearly visible to all astronomers on the planet? In fact, if it was even closer in, within the orbit of Saturn and Jupiter, it would be clearly visible to the naked eye, for the reason being that we can see Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn with our naked eyes. We don't need to use telescopes to look at those planets because they are large, they're bright, they're close, and we do not need infrared to see them. And if there was a brown dwarf or large rogue planet passing through our solar system, we would see it very clearly for the same reason, that it would be reflecting visible light. There is this myth floating around the Nibiru community that brown dwarfs can only be imaged in infrared. And then in the next breath, of course, they say, but have a look at this video on YouTube showing Nibiru Planet X next to the sun, or Nibiru Planet X in Leo, or whatever, taken with a crappy phone camera or some webcam somewhere. And then when we say, well, we astronomers can't see it, and then they turn around and say, well, you can only see it in infrared. And of course, even amateur astronomers can image in infrared. Astronomy Live has an infrared camera. We use a type of infrared camera at the observatory that I'm with. But the only reason that brown dwarfs are imaged in infrared, there is a very good reason. The nearest brown dwarf is so incredibly far away from the Earth and our sun that it does not reflect enough visible light to be seen in visible light. Therefore, we must use infrared. The nearest brown dwarf to the sun and the Earth is 6.5 light years away, which is approximately 2 light years further away than the nearest star to our sun. Astronomy Live?
Yeah, absolutely right. And so to back up what you were saying, you can have some fun with the numbers. I've got a little Excel spreadsheet here that has some formulas that I put into it to do some simple calculations on sizes and distances and magnitudes. So brown dwarf stars tend to have roughly the same, even though they can have, and they do all have many times Jupiter's mass, their diameters are not significantly larger than Jupiter. They don't scale linearly with mass, because with more mass, you have more gravitational contraction, and the whole planet just kind of gets more compressed. And that's why at a certain point they start fusing deuterium at about 13 times Jupiter's mass, which is sort of a minimum cutoff for the mass of a brown dwarf, according to some scientists. Depends on how you view it. We can get into that whole discussion, but that's a discussion for another time, whether you count a brown dwarf as based on its formation or based on its mass. But basically, they start fusing deuterium around 13 times Jupiter's mass, but they don't have much deuterium, so they run out very quickly, which is why they call them failed stars. They don't have enough mass to start fusing hydrogen, and that doesn't happen until 80 times Jupiter's mass, roughly. And so that's when you start to get into red dwarfs. So Nibiru is frequently claimed to be some sort of brown dwarf star, or in some tales, it's a planet orbiting a brown dwarf star, which has Anunnaki living on it, or whatever. But a brown dwarf, even a minimum mass brown dwarf, as I showed in my earlier video, it would absolutely wreck the solar system gravitationally. And you would not need a telescope to see it if it were in the inner solar system. It would still have, about the same diameter as Jupiter, and it would reflect sunlight similar, in a fashion similar to one of the gas giants. And so it would be a very bright, naked eye object in the sky. In fact, even if it only reflected 1% of the mass that hit it, you would still have a massive, just a massive absolute magnitude. So let's say that it has the diameter of Jupiter, which, if my math is right on this, is that right? 139,822 kilometers. Let me just double check this in Wikipedia right now, just to be sure that I'm plugging this in right, because it's amazing how, equatorial radius, polar radius. So polar radius depends on whether, mean radius is 69,911. So yeah, that's right. Yeah, if you double 69,911, you end up with 139,822. So that's the diameter of Jupiter, mean diameter. If we plug that in with an albedo of only 1%, so reflecting just 1% of the light, we end up with an absolute magnitude of negative 5.11. So let's say.
Well, can I just jump into Astronomy Live and say, you say a magnitude of negative
5.11. Now that's absolute magnitude, though. That's not apparent magnitude. So for apparent magnitude, you have to plug in distance. So let's see here. Let's say that the distance from Earth, that is, let's just say it's as far away as Neptune, okay? Just for the sake of argument, let's say it is 30 AU from the sun and 29 AU from Earth. So let's say it's an opposition, and it is 30 AU away. So it's as far away as Neptune. Now, at that distance, at 1% reflectivity, it would still have an apparent magnitude of 10, which is dimmer than naked eye, but easily visible with any amateur telescope, probably even visible with most binoculars at magnitude 10, I would think, but definitely visible to telescopes. I mean, the central star of the Ring Nebula, which is a challenging target visually, but easily imaged with CCD cameras, that is at magnitude 15. Significantly dimmer than this. At magnitude 10, it would be a fairly bright star in a telescope like mine, in visible or infrared light. Now, let's say it is, let's just have some fun here. Let's say it's 15 AU from the sun, 14 AU from Earth. At that point, you are at a magnitude of about 6.9, so right at visible naked eye magnitude. So about the point at which it reaches half the distance from us of Neptune, people start to see it by eye, and it's blaringly obvious to any telescope. Just blind, not blindingly bright, but very, very bright in a telescope field of view.
Right, and I think an important point to make too is that every night there are astronomers, professional and amateurs, a huge crowd of amateur astronomers all around the world who are scanning the sky every night looking for new asteroids and comets. And asteroids and comets are considerably smaller than a brown dwarf or a rogue planet. A comet has a typical diameter of maybe a few kilometers across with the core. Asteroids can be smaller, and yet these very tiny objects are detected by amateur astronomers all of the time, and they would have no trouble detecting an object such as a brown dwarf or a rogue planet passing through our solar system. Agreed?
Absolutely. Just as an example, the comet that I discovered earlier this year, P2016J3, that is, if you look at that on arith.net, you'll find that the magnitude was listed at 10 at discovery. I'm not sure. It's kind of, the readings are a little bit jumbled because we only have a few observations of that comet from the time period where it was discovered. But the readings range from about magnitude 8 to about magnitude 10 in apparent magnitude at the time it was discovered. So it was somewhere in that ballpark of how bright a brown dwarf would be if it were that close to us, if it were anywhere near the inner solar system, if it were at the distance of Neptune or closer. That would be something that you could pretty easily discover by looking at images from the stereo heliospheric imagers, which are extremely wide field imagers that frankly don't have all that great a depth to them in terms of apparent magnitude. You can't detect objects that are nearly as dim as you can with a full-size telescope. If you look at the heliospheric imagers that are on stereo, they're really small lenses. These are really wide field lenses. It would be like finding a new object with almost a webcam type imaging system, like an all-sky cam. Not quite that wide field, but pretty wide field. The reason I was able to find a comet that no one else had found is because stereo is on the opposite side of the sun, and so it has a unique perspective on the solar system. And so it wasn't really visible from Earth, but it was visible from stereo ahead. Well, even with stereo ahead, I haven't found any brown dwarf approaching the inner solar system yet, neither has any other amateur astronomer. With an amateur telescope, comets are frequently found at magnitude 16, 17, 18. And asteroids are frequently, near-Earth asteroids are frequently discovered by professional surveys and immediately followed up on by amateur astronomers at very dim magnitudes, 18, 19, these really, really dim magnitudes that are far, far below anything the human eye can see. And so, I see these alerts all the time of new novae, new stars that are discovered, basically stellar explosions that are witnessed by amateur astronomers and discovered by amateur astronomers, both supernova in other galaxies and nova, new stellar explosions in our galaxy as well. There was one in Sagittarius just the other day. It was like, I think it was around magnitude 10, somewhere in that ballpark. And that was considered bright. That was considered bright. It was like, oh, wow, we have a magnitude 10 nova. That's bright. That's easy to observe.
If I can interject, somebody named Ed Fealty in the chat says that his physicists are placing Nibiru at 60 AU away. I asked him for coordinates twice. He has yet to answer.
Oh, this is like the Ed Felty that has been outed as Steve Olson's sock puppet.
Yeah.
Hi, Ed. Why don't you come on and chat with us?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Come and tell us all about Nibiru. We'll put some questions to you, and you can answer our questions about Nibiru and how those facts stack up when they're scrutinized. So let us know. Send us an email address or contact me through my email address on the About tab of my YouTube channel, and we'll get you on the show and we can talk about your Nibiru Planet X and exactly where it is. And by the way, Steve Olson, if you're out there, the invite is still there, the clock is still ticking, and I look forward to you coming on the show and fronting up to everyone and answering questions about Nibiru Planet X.
He's not going to come on, dude. I mean, he can't even like retract a video that's been proven not to be a plasma beam. I mean, the frames show fireworks like on a yearly basis, and he won't even tell his subscribers that he was wrong. He like just carries on and plays with it. Like he goes with the topic. He knows he's wrong because he watches me like a hawk because he's frightened of me.
Absolutely, and these guys are all about the views. Now, we often come under criticism because, for example, I debunk other YouTubers' videos, and I'm accused of going after the big guys to get views. Well, in response to that, I can say, I know that my channel will never get the number of views that these other big fear-mongering channels get, because they are playing to people's fears and anxiety, and they're posting exciting, sensational videos that people find exciting to watch. It's a bit like going on a roller coaster or watching a horror movie. There's that whole thing with the adrenaline, being scared and all that sort of thing, and this attracts some people. But plain old debunking videos like mine, which are just plain old boring facts to most people, most people don't want to watch that. So I know that I will never get the number of views or subscribers on my channel that these other channels do. If my motivation was subscribers and views, I would probably be turning out Nibiru Planet X videos claiming that we're all going to die sometime next week. I'd be making squillions.
Yep, fear for profit. That's my new slogan, fear for profit. Sensationalism sells.
I think he sort of tried to half answer my where's the coordinates question by saying he's still working on those, but the rough guess was for CPA was 177 days back in September 15th, I think. Not sure how that correlates to coordinates, but if he knows the distance, which you were very adamant about him knowing the distance, he's got to know where it's at.
Absolutely.
That means coordinates.
If you know what the distance is, and if you know what the position is, you should be able to give the right ascension and declination coordinates, or even a rough estimate of that. And for people who can't sort of think in terms of right ascension or declination coordinates, at the very least you could give us a very defined area in a constellation. But even this always fails because it doesn't exist.
Yep. Absolutely. Somebody asked if I observe an infrared, and I do observe an infrared, and I'm trying to find right now, I'm trying to find a link to my picture of CW Leonis, because I took a picture of it in both infrared and visible light and compared the two. And you can clearly see the object when I shoot it in infrared, and it's basically invisible, and invisible when I record it in visible light. So the way astronomical cameras like mine work, they don't necessarily come with a built-in infrared blocking filter. If you have a consumer CCD camera, they generally have an infrared blocking filter built into them. Okay, I found a link to a tiny cropped version of the full picture, but this will show it.
Say something here real quick.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
All right. On one of the second or first to the last emails I sent to Scott was through infrared, but it's something that I just wanted to bring up because I wasn't able to explain it, and it's kind of one of the reasons why I sent it to him. If you want to check that out, but I just wanted to throw that out there real quick.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
If anyone has just joined us, this was the voice of Shazun, who has joined us in the Hangout. Shazun has informed us that he is actually the person that sent the video to Scott from Nibiru Planet X 2016 that Scott has today. And Shazun has confirmed that he's looked into this and agrees with us that it is, in fact, the planet Saturn. Is that correct, Shazun?
I do agree with you, correct.
Right, thank you for that. So, as you were Astronomy Live?
Yes, so just showing my picture here of CW Leonis in visible light compared to infrared light. Same exact coordinates, but it's only visible basically in infrared light when I take off an infrared blocking filter. So I shot it with an infrared blocking filter in place because I can thread any filter I want in place on the camera. and then took that off and instead installed a visible light blocking filter. So the infrared image is actually pure infrared. There is no visible light in that picture, and yet the camera is still able to detect all these stars just fine, because it is quite sensitive to infrared light in ways that the human eye is not. CCD cameras are generally sensitive over a wider range of the light spectrum than human vision is. So you're able to image in infrared with an astronomical CCD camera quite easily, because generally speaking, they don't have a visible or an infrared light blocking filter pre-installed on them. If you buy an SLR camera, they tend to have infrared filters built into them. You can remove them, and in fact, there are businesses and individuals who will do that for you for a fee. They will take your SLR camera, take the infrared blocking filter out of it, and give it back to you. And a lot of astronomers like to do that because hydrogen alpha light, which is what you see in these beautiful red nebulae, is very close to the cutoff of that infrared blocking filter. And so you tend to lose a lot of the red color that you would normally see in a nebula if you use an unmodified consumer camera. And so a lot of astronomers tend to modify their cameras, which is why if you walk around any given star party and you look at the people taking pictures, most of them will have an infrared sensitive camera on hand. And they may even be shooting full spectrum without an infrared blocking filter at all. And that's usually the case for me. When I'm doing imaging, I tend to shoot just without any infrared blocking filter, right? Because I don't use a refractor usually. I usually use my Schmidt-Cassegrain, so I don't really get much in the way of chromatic aberration that would necessarily require me to restrict the spectrum of light that the camera is receiving. So I just go ahead and shoot full spectrum unless I have some particular reason to block either visible or infrared light.
Right. Now I'm going to come back to the point too about the infrared cameras. I just want to address a point that Sean has made in the chat in response to Steve. Sean says, Steve, you're missing the point. In order to give a distance to any object, you must be able to place it in a 3D space, which means you must know the coordinates, which is an excellent point, because obviously how do you know how far away something is unless you know how far away it is, if you know what I mean. In a 3D space, if you're looking at a two-dimensional image, you've really got no reference as to depth. So, Sean, would you like to expand on your answer on that?
Well, it's simple. You know, he keeps claiming that they know the distance is 60 AU. And if they can't position it in the sky, they don't even know where to look. How can they find it if they don't know where to look to try to even range it? Which will, of course, be done through parallax at this point. But, you know, if they have to know its orbital path, they have to know its location in its coordinates to find it again. Without all that, they can't judge a distance, period.
Absolutely. And to be able to, as you say, to be able to calculate its trajectory, they need to be able to go back to it and look at its next position so that they can add that to their observations and calculations. If they can't give the right ascension and declination coordinates for it, they don't know where it is. The sky is a pretty big place when you're talking about this scale.
You know, you can't judge a distance on something from one observation. You have to do observations over time to see how it's moving.
Absolutely. And Scott Manley, I don't know if you guys have seen this video, you probably have. Scott Manley did an excellent video, basically a tutorial on how asteroids are discovered and how orbits are determined. And he lays it out in really easy terms that anyone can grasp and understand. So I don't know if you want to include or throw down a link in the chat or what, but I've got the video right there. I don't know if we're allowed to play other people's videos and Hangouts. I don't know how that works in terms of the copyright, but it's a really good video. Everyone should watch it.
Right. Okay. We can include a link to that video in the video description if you remind me afterwards, in case I forget. So just going back to the infrared camera, Astronomy Live, you talked about the modification of standard cameras, and at the observatory that I'm a member and committee member of the local astronomical society, we have a Canon 60D DSLR camera that we use on the telescope. Now it's actually a specialized model called a 60D-A, and the A stands for astrophotography. So that is a standard camera that anybody can buy as a 60D, but from the factory they've actually left out the infrared cut filter that Astronomy Live was referring to. So that means that those wavelengths in the infrared are not being removed by the infrared cut filter. So we can use that camera straight into the end of the telescope. It basically goes in where the eyepiece assembly goes in, and it is like having a DSLR camera with a 13-inch wide zoom lens on it, and an infrared camera, of course. So yes, as Astronomy Live was saying, a standard camera can be modified so that you can still see that infrared wavelength.
Absolutely. In fact, let me grab I've got my my CCD camera right here with me. Let me pop that open so people can see what an astronomical CCD camera looks like. I've got one that's designed specifically for telescopes. It's not designed to take any kind of normal daytime image. It's designed particularly for astronomy and for telescopes. And so it never had an infrared blocking filter installed on it. In fact, I believe the window to the CCD chamber is actually made out of a quartz material to make sure that it minimizes even blocking UV light, because they wanted to maximize the spectral sensitivity of the CCD. So if you wanted to, you could block visible light and infrared light and get some UV light onto the chip and detect it. So let me pull that out right now and just show you guys on my webcam here what that actually looks like. Oh, hang on, I got it. Actually, I forgot. My microphone tends to buzz when I turn on my webcam, so I'm going to turn the microphone off, but turn my webcam on so that you guys can see it. So I think the microphone will work okay here for a minute, as long as I don't run that crazy green screen camera mode. So you can see the camera here. I actually do have an infrared filter on the CCD window, and the shutter is actually closed, so you can't see the CCD. But you see this glass piece right here. This is an infrared blocking filter, but this just threads on. This is actually an accessory that was purchased separately from, I believe, Astronomy. They make some really nice filters. And this is actually just threaded on there as a way of protecting the CCD. It's not actually on there normally. Seems I've got it threaded up pretty good right now. I can't get it unthreaded. Oh, that bugs me. Okay, well, here we go. Got it loose. Thread up a little tight, but I actually just keep that on there when I put it in its case to protect the front cover of the CCD chamber. So there it is. There's no filter there. This is the only piece of glass, that what you're seeing right there is the only piece of glass between the outside of the camera and the inside of the CCD chamber, which has the CCDs inside. There's actually two CCDs inside that chamber. One provides the main imaging, ST2000XCM. One is a large main CCD. It's actually the exact same type of CCD as used on the Mars Curiosity rover and the panorama cameras. And then the secondary CCD is a smaller chip that provides auto guiding on a star while the camera's imaging through the telescope. So that right there, that little window does not block infrared light, and that is the only thing between the outside of the camera and the inside. And on the inside you have the shutter, and then you have the main CCD camera. So as you can see, this beast is not a normal looking camera. This is designed specifically for astronomy, and you can thread on any filter you want directly onto that window, or you can attach your adapter to attach it to the telescope onto these threads, and then put another filter wheel if you want to in front of it. So there are a variety of ways to put filters on there, but these are completely detachable. So this right here is the infrared blocking filter. So this is a UV IR rejection filter, so it blocks both UV light and infrared light. And let's see, who made this thing? This came from, I don't know, doesn't say. It gives a patent number there, but this actually came with the camera. The guy who sold me the camera provided this with it and just kept it on there as a way to protect the front of the CCD, because obviously this can be replaced a lot cheaper than this. So this just protects that front glass cover on the CCD chamber. So that is how astronomical cameras work.
A little off topic, but just to point out, WTF Sky actually made a decent comment in the chat, but I'm going to expand on it. You got that Christopher Reeve hair thing going on from Superman.
Yeah, it started doing this after my last couple haircuts. I'm not sure why.
Yes, WTF Scott says Astro Boy has a great head of hair. Bet that's why Scott from Nibiru channel hates him. Now, just since you're on camera there, Astronomy Live, and I think this is what somebody was alluding to in the comments, that you don't look like the Professor Scott. Do you want to expand on that at this stage, or?
Yeah, I guess I will. So I am not the Professor Scott up in Tampa, and he, I believe, is a professor of like film studies or something. So no, I'm not him, and I know others have previously thought I am him because they looked up my full name, which I will not utter here, and looked for any PhDs in the state of Florida with that name. And there is more than one person with my name in the state of Florida with a PhD. Believe it or not, they don't cut off the awarding of PhDs to people with particular names in particular states once one person in the state with that name has attained a PhD. So yes, I do have a PhD in a scientific field, not astronomy. Astronomy is my hobby. I'm an amateur astronomer, but I am a professional scientist. And I do not work at a university, so you will not find my name in the faculty list of any of the Floridian universities. So I don't want to go into too much detail because obviously Nibiru channel is hell-bent on doxing me as hard as he can right now, and he ended up finding the wrong person's information and posting it in his video. The email address I think was in there, the phone number I think was on there, like a bunch of his information. You could bomb his email now thanks to that video, which is not nice. So I had warned him a couple years ago because something like this happened a couple of years ago where somebody did the same sort of thing, tried to look me up, managed to find my name, and then managed to find the wrong person. And in fact, there's a few people with my name in Florida. So there's been a number of people I've been accused of being that I'm not actually. So he found, somebody found this guy's information. I sent him an email 2 years ago saying, hey, somebody really hates me and they found your information. They think you're me. I just want to let you know, give you a heads up. Never heard back from him. So I don't know. But yeah, it's not me, obviously, and I don't work in the university system. I'm not a professor. I'm a scientist, but I do not have a professorship because I do not work in the university system.
Right, so thank you for clarifying that. Now at this point, I think we'll wind the Hangout down. I've actually got to head off shortly anyway. And once again, I don't want to make it too long. We've covered a lot of great topics here. So just before we close out, are there any closing comments that the other participants would like to make?
No, I'll have some more content, to expose Scott in the future. I'm working on my response. But at this time, I don't have a whole lot to say other than, I'm very blessed to have all these supporters, and to come in contact with you guys just to sort of have a unified front for real truth and to sort of hone in on these guys because they are affecting people's lives.
Absolutely. Thank you, WTF Sky. Sean, anything to add on that?
Nope, I'm good. Thank you for having me, and it's time for me to hit the sack.
Okay, and finally, Shazoon, too. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for actually fronting up and sharing that information with us, and we will be following up on that, and I will talk to you further about that information and about sharing that information. So thank you once again. Just in closing, this is confirming that the coordinates that were posted in the video by Nibiru, Planet X 2016, and showing an object from 2011 is in fact the planet Saturn.
Saturn, correct.
Absolutely. Okay, so thank you everyone. Thank you to everyone in the chat for joining us. It's been a very interesting show, and I'd like to thank Scott from Nibiru Planet X 2016 and also Steve Olson for creating this unique opportunity for us to get this information out there and share it with the public and to have quite an open and honest and frank discussion about Nibiru Planet X, something that you will not see on their channels. So thank you everyone, and we're going to close out now, and stay tuned. No doubt there'll be further developments on this.
All right. Have a good one then.
Bye, guys. Have a good night.
Hello, YouTube. This is Dazzathecameraman. Today is Monday, October 24th, 2016, and this is a follow-up general hangout to our last hangout discussing Nibiru Planet X 2016, coordinates revealed. So we're just going to open this up for some general discussion. We saw that there were a number of comments in the chat, and so we're going to open that up and talk about Planet X, Nibiru in general, and some of the claims that are made. So welcome along Astronomy Live once again, and we also have Sean Hufford with us, and Sean will be helping us to moderate the technical side and also will contribute to the discussion. So welcome along, Sean.
Hello again.
Thank you for joining us. Okay, so Astronomy Live, would you just like to recap on our last hangout and what your findings were, please?
Sure. So video was posted earlier today by Nibiru Planet X channel 2016, claiming to show Nibiru in Google Sky from images that were taken by the SLU Observatory back in 2011. And so I know it doesn't share properly, but these images, when you pop this window up, it actually shows the dates the pictures were taken. This is a picture from SLU overlaid on top of Google Sky. You can see there's a bright object there not visible in the background images of Google Sky. Well, it turns out if you look at the coordinates for where this really is on Google Sky, this turns out to be Saturn. And it's important to look at the real coordinates, which are shown down here in the bottom right corner of Google Sky. The marker showing the coordinates here are off due to a bug with the SLU connection to Google Sky. It's off by about 12 hours. In fact, exactly 12 hours right ascension. So it's important to look at where it actually is in relation to the stars. It's in the constellation Virgo, which is at 13 hours right ascension. And sure enough, it matches the position of Saturn in February 2011 when the picture was taken. So we covered that in the last Hangout, and I covered it in a video uploaded to my channel. So just a few seconds of research with any given planetarium program would have quickly revealed to Nibiru channel what this really was. But instead, he hopped on YouTube and immediately posted a video that was completely and factually wrong, claiming that this is an unknown object, a mysterious object with moons, when in fact it's a known object with moons, Saturn.
Right, thank you for that recap. So once again, another so-called Nibiru Planet X object has been debunked and positively identified, and in this case, as Astronomy Live has just confirmed, it is the planet Saturn. So this follows on from a long series of failed claims from Nibiru Planet X 2016, supposedly showing Nibiru. And just to recap, of course, the video that started this all was his video supposedly showing planet Enoch, as he called it, crossing over in front of the sun, which was subsequently identified, positively identified, as being the moon, as seen from stereo behind in 2007. And then he uploaded a video from Scotland, which was a webcam, supposedly showing Nibiru racing across the sky, which was positively identified as being a lens flare, and that video was subsequently removed. And then he uploaded a video supposedly showing Nibiru as seen from the skies of Phoenix, Arizona. And even the location was wrong because it was Tucson, Arizona, and it was a sunlit cloud at sunset. And that video has since been removed. And now with his latest, greatest revelations of the coordinates for Nibiru in 2011, we find it is Saturn. So another one bites the dust. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, you cut off there at the end. Were you referring to me or to Sean?
Either of you guys, just jump in there and let's hear what you've got to say. Well, I'm just kind of watching the chat. Pete is back into chat, still wanting to ask his questions. I don't know if he wants to actually get into the Hangout or not. I thought you were in contact with him.
Yes, I had sent the link to Pete in case he wanted to join. So I'm sorry, I'm just behind the scenes here. I'm catching up on what's going on. Only chatting to the Skype guys, not chatting to the chat. Okay, so I gather from that, Pete, that you just want to remain in the chat and comment by text. You've got the link. If you do want to join the Hangout, you can join the Hangout and come on live. But other than that, you can just comment in the text if you prefer to do so.
Going on to the assumption that he doesn't want to join. His first question was, first, have you seen my last video? If so, can you explain why the North Pole just had an earthquake and the sun's monitors are doing weird stuff?
Okay, I'll defer some of the more technical side to Astronomy Live because he is certainly a much more able astronomer than I am. I'll just paint a little picture here just to fill people in. Pete WDHCO is a Nibiru Planet X believer. Okay, so it's quite interesting to have the viewpoint of somebody who believes in Nibiru Planet X and to answer the questions or points that they have to see if we can address those issues. So just to recap that question again, and maybe Astronomy Live can address that.
Well, I'd have to see the specific video to see what he's referring to, but it sounds like, you know, there's a lot of claims about Nibiru which involve, you know, look at this, look at that type situations, look at, you know, a mass death of birds or fish, or here's an earthquake in an odd area on Earth that I'm not used to seeing earthquakes, or here's a, you know, model of the solar wind that screwed up for a day. You know, I don't know. I know there was some issue with a computer model that looked at Earth's geomagnetic field, and it looked like Earth's magnetic field collapsed at one point. He attributed, you know, a lot of things like that can be attributed to simple glitches in the actual modeling. Sometimes the sensors providing the data for the model lose their connection, and then the model itself ends up breaking. I can't speak to the specifics of the video since I haven't seen it, but, you know, I think in any of these cases we have to be careful about first of all, trying to cherry pick points of data that don't necessarily have anything to do with an unknown body approaching Earth. It doesn't take an unknown body approaching Earth to have an earthquake, even an earthquake in an odd area on Earth. So those two don't necessarily go together. If there were an actual Planet X or Nibiru object approaching Earth, swinging into the inner solar system, it would have gravitational effects on all the planets, not just Earth. And you would see that not just with earthquakes. In fact, you would see other effects long before you saw earthquakes. You would see perturbations in the orbits of the outer planets. You would see Neptune, Uranus. They wouldn't match up with the ephemeris of where they're predicted to be due to those perturbations. We haven't seen that. So for you to make a credible claim about an object near Earth causing earthquakes, you first have to show that there is a plausible reason to believe that could be a working mechanism to explain the earthquake in the first place, instead of issues with the Earth's mantle, plate tectonics. Before jumping to the conclusion that it's Nibiru affecting Earth, you have to show that Nibiru is a plausible mechanism to cause whatever it is that you're looking at, whether it's modeling of the solar wind or earthquakes or any of these sort of secondary factors.
Right, and to go back to some of the points like about the poles that was referenced in the first question, this is a claim that we often hear, is that people say that the Earth's poles have shifted. And unfortunately, people often confuse between magnetic pole shift, which is completely normal and has always happened, and shifting of the axis of rotation, the Earth's axis rotation, which has not shifted. There are charts out there that show what appears to be a shifting in the Earth's axis of rotation, but the amount of shifting that we're talking about is actually measured in milli-arc seconds. Now, just to explain that, 1 degree is broken down into 60 arc minutes. So 1/60th of 1 degree is 1 arc minute. If you take that 1 arc minute and break that down by a further 60, that gives you arc seconds. Now, when we talk about milli-arc seconds, we're talking about 1,000th of 1/3600th of 1 degree. So although it might look like a spectacular shift on a chart, when you realize the actual terribly small unit that we're actually measuring in, there is no change in the Earth's axis of rotation. It is still at approximately 23.4 degrees. Polaris is still our pole star, which is about 2/3 of 1 degree from the north celestial equator, and everything is normal. And if it wasn't, if the Earth had been thrown off its axis by a brown dwarf or rogue planet nearby, then all of the objects in the sky, all of the planets, the stars, everything that we look at from the point of view of astronomers would be in the wrong position as far as their right ascension and declination coordinates go. Would you agree with that, Astronomy Live?
Yeah, absolutely. And just to reiterate the point, since he was complaining that we're not answering his question about an earthquake on the North Pole, but like I said, it doesn't require Nibiru for there to be earthquakes, even in odd locations on Earth. And if that were the cause, if it were some massive object that was somehow torquing Earth's crust and causing earthquakes in strange locations, there would have to be massive effects on the orbits of the planets before you got to that point. So where are they? Where are the perturbed orbits that are completely out of whack with VSOP 83 or VSOP 87 and all these other algorithms for calculating the positions of the planets? I'm not seeing it, and neither are other amateur astronomers. So it doesn't require Nibiru to explain that. I don't have to know precisely what it is to know Nibiru is not the cause. We can rule that out as a cause, right? And then we can look at other factors and see what might be causing it. But to claim that it's some massive planet that's in the solar system that's causing Earth to experience earthquakes and all this other stuff, you have to show that that's a plausible mechanism. You have to show that the orbits are being perturbed by some unseen force that is potentially causing these kinds of events.
Well, he just made a topic that's on, or made a comment that's on topic with what you're saying. He says the orbits will look the same because the whole system is out. The problem with that is the background stars also being tilted by Nibiru.